Hey everybody, welcome back to Video Game So today I got a fun and exciting episode for you guys today because we're going to be talking about the work in progress Castlevania Symphony of the Night decompilation project. Because I mentioned it briefly a few times on the channel, both is just a compilation of all of the different decomps in the works, and then when we got Maria added into the PlayStation 1 version of Castlevania Symphony of the Night. But this decompilation project might be bigger than any other project out there, encompassing so many different versions of what I would consider one of the best games ever made. So that's what we're going to be talking about today. Because honestly, a decompiled version of Castlevania Symphony of the Night ported to PC would be one of those things that would be absolutely a dream for me. Before I get too far involved though, do me a huge favor, go down below, hit like and subscribe, and ring that notification bell. Definitely helps us out. And if you feel so inclined and want to support the channel, I got a Patreon link down below as well. And if you're curious, I'm currently playing the PlayStation 1 version of the game with Maria modded into it from the actual PlayStation Portable version of Castlevania Symphony of the Night. This is part of the decompilation project, and it seems to be a little bit of an amuse-bouche or tease of where this is actually going. But let's take a look at the project in and of itself on GitHub, and I will leave a link in the description below. This is just one of the biggest, most impressive decomp projects I've seen. Now, as far as when it's going to be done, I have absolutely no idea whatsoever. I will let you know as soon as I know, but it isn't just targeting the PlayStation 1 version of the game. It's also targeting an unreleased Japanese PlayStation 1 beta, as well as the European build from Dracula X Chronicles and the Sega Saturn version of the game, which I've always said is my favorite way to play, and that's going to be absolutely amazing. Just think about those four versions of the game all decompiled and brought into a PC port. What it really means, at least in my opinion, or in my hope, is that you could basically toggle whatever options you want. If you want to play the PlayStation 1 version of the game with the Sega Saturn bonus levels and the Sega Saturn version of Maria, that would be incredible to kind of mix and match your own custom Castlevania Symphony of the Night experience for playing. Because I love the Saturn version of the game, and this is original footage running off my Sega Saturn captured in RGB, but it definitely has its downsides. You lose transparencies completely, and you also have some issues with slowdown where there never were any before. But of course you get two different new areas in the castle, you get new weapons, new familiars, and the Saturn version of Maria, who is more powerful than she is going to be in the PlayStation Portable version of the game, because on the PSP side of things, Maria is based on her overall moveset from Rondo of Blood. Sure, she got older, but basically her moveset's going to be more closely resembling Rondo, where I definitely prefer it in something like Maria mode in the Saturn version of the game. And before you go down below and talk about the ultimate version of Saturn, I will get to that in just a moment. But that really is the thing about Symphony of the Night. It's one of the most popular games ever made, which means there's a metric crap ton of mods and ROM hacks out there for it. And I would love to see something like this. This is Sega Saturn footage off my real Sega Saturn, and you'll see here on the doppelganger fight against Alucard, Maria has these projectile weapons as well as these sub-weapons from the Saturn version. If we move over to the recently released Maria for PlayStation 1 from the PlayStation Portable version, you're going to see she has her bird attacks and a completely different set of sub-weapons. Depending on how you feel, you might like one more than the other, but if there is a finished decomp that turns into a PC port, I would love to see the option basically to just check which Maria you want and which version of the game you want. But if we move over to the GitHub page in and of itself, you're going to see all of the different libraries and other assets from the game and just how far along they are in their decomp process. Some are going to be green 100%, others are going to be in the 70s, 80s, or 90s. So as far as when this is going to be done, I have absolutely no idea. It could be next week, it could be next year, it could be 2 years from now. It definitely is something. There are a lot of different moving pieces, and when you're dealing with not one but 4 different decomps, including one from the PlayStation Portable and the Sega Saturn, which has different code, it definitely takes time, but it's already deriving some results. We talked about this a few weeks ago, the Maria PSP for PSX mod. Definitely some intense directions on how to get it running, but it brings you the PlayStation Portable version of Maria into the PlayStation 1 version of the game, and that was insane to see. But it soundtrack sample one time just because I love the music in the game. I'll talk about alt music in just a moment, but I'll be right back. Obviously, that's some incredible music, but on the Sega Saturn side of things, in Nocturne in the Moonlight, you have different tracks, especially if you're playing with Maria in certain areas, and you're going to have brand new tracks in some of the new areas of the castle as well. So imagine being able to play the full PlayStation 1 version of the game, but utilizing the Sega Saturn soundtrack, or imagine being able to play the Sega Saturn version of the game without any of the slowdown and all of the transparencies. That would be insane as well, because if you take a look here on the PlayStation 1 version of the game, this is the Maria mod from PlayStation Portable. Those skulls there are going to have their full transparencies. Now if we move over to original hardware on the Sega Saturn side of things, you're going to see the skulls completely lose their transparencies. We get some slowdown and it ends up going to a dithering pattern to try to actually make those transparencies look like they are transparent on the screen. It's not the worst look in the world, but it's definitely something that is completely different. Now as far as the code in of itself are concerned, the GitHub project has a ton of different progress supports that you can kind of sift through. Sure, you need to kind of understand what you're looking at, but it's going to talk about all 4 of the different versions of the game that are going to be decompiled, and it gives you kind of a heat map or flow chart as to how each and every one is progressing. You can kind of move around, see the overall functions, the code base, figure out what has been decompiled and what is still remaining for every single file, asset, and other function in the game. Some of them aren't going to make any sense, others are going to make perfect sense as far as the actual naming convention is concerned. N002 might not mean anything, but if you see library, you know that's going to be Dracula's library within the actual game of Symphony of the Night in and of itself. Definitely just some fun charts, and just shows how much work goes into actually decompiling stuff like this, because it absolutely is insane. You'll see there's a completely different chart for the PSP EU version of Symphony of the Night. They're just talking about Symphony of the Night in the game, not the PlayStation Portable remake version of Rondo of Blood. But it is one of those things, just seeing this is so much fun, and it really opens it up to so many different options. So you leave me a comment down below and you tell me, what would you combine together to make your quote-unquote ultimate version of Castlevania Symphony of the Night? For me personally, I'd take the 2 extra areas from Dracula's Castle from Sega Saturn, as well as Saturn Maria, and the additional soundtrack elements, weapons, familiars, and otherwise. I put them in the PlayStation 1 version of the game, so we got transparencies and no slowdown. But I would definitely stay away from the PlayStation Portable dialogue lines that are in the ultimate version on Saturn. They are quite jarring, and if you've never heard them before, go ahead and listen, and I'll be right back with a lot more.
Alucard, what is your business here?
I've come to put an end to this.
Ever the insolent boy. But there will be no games here. If you will not behave, be gone.
I will do neither. Step aside, old man.
Such arrogance. Very well. But I shall see you very soon.
So when I talked about the Saturn Ultimate version of the game last year, the #1 comment I saw was nobody really liked the PlayStation Portable dialogue and voiceover from that version of the game because it sounds completely different than we got back in the day. So maybe you'd be able to just use all the dialogue lines from the PlayStation 1 Portable version with all of the Saturn extras, or maybe you could even have the Japanese dialogue, maybe with some subtitles added into a potential PC port. But again, when we talk about this, there's so many different functions and libraries that need to be decompiled for this to work. Every single bit of Symphony of the Night across 4 different versions of the game needs to be 100% decompiled and confirmed to build exactly like it should before any sort of porting really can take place. Sure, you could probably start it without 100%, but it feels like maybe you should wait for all that work to be done. But this is definitely going to be exciting because still to this day, I consider Symphony of the Night and the Saturn version Nocturne in the Moonlight one of the top 10 best games ever made and one of my all-time favorites. And it is one of those things, there's so many different versions of the game that have so many different features inside of them. You really would have to play the game across 3 different platforms to experience everything that Symphony of the Night has to offer. But as a decomp, imagine just a menu where you could turn on or off whatever you wanted. You could have PlayStation Portable version of Maria in the Saturn version. You could have Saturn version of Maria in PlayStation 1. You could have the additional levels from Sega Saturn in the PlayStation 1 version of the game. You could have widescreen. You could have different mods. You could basically have anything you wanted so long as somebody was willing to make it. That is what's so exciting about this Decomp project and Decomp project in general. They're going to give you new amazing versions of games you know, love, and remember from back in the day. day. And honestly, of all the decomp projects, this one definitely excites me the most. Leave me a comment down below and you tell me. I always love to ask this. If you could just snap your fingers right now and make one game that you love be decompiled and ported to PC, which one would it be? Honestly, for me, this one leads the top of the charts, and I can't wait to see how the progress goes. I'll definitely update you in a video once more happens, but otherwise, go play some version of Symphony of the Night, and I'll see you guys next time. Hope you enjoyed the video. Bye-bye.